U.S. President Donald Trump has just arrived. He is, of course, meeting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as President Reuven. And we're waiting for him to come down the red carpet with his wife, First Lady Melania. We can see the dignitaries waiting for him in the middle there, or Prime Minister rather, Netanyahu with his wife. We should be seeing President Trump any minute now, and we're of course expecting him to speak within the hour or so there at Ben-Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. This is, of course, following his visit over the weekend to Saudi Arabia, where billions of dollars in arms deals were signed between President Trump and the Saudi government. And our Nicole Johnston will be joining us as soon as she's available for further comment. She's been covering all the events in the region for the last days surrounding President Trump's visit. This is his first visit to the region, and actually his first trip abroad as U.S. president. And we can speak to Nicole now, who can join us live from East Jerusalem to walk us through some of the, we should say, managed expectations for President Trump's visit here.
Yes, well, first of all, I'd say there are really no great expectations from either side. The so-called peace process, not that there's much of a process, has been dead in the water for the last couple of years. The last time there were any meaningful talks were 2 years ago, 2016. They pretty much wound up actually a number of years ago. So the situation for Palestinians living in the West Bank and under siege in Gaza is as difficult and terrible as it's always been. Now, the US President Donald Trump will travel to Bethlehem. He'll meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. We were in Bethlehem speaking to people who live there, who cross the separation wall, spend hours at Israeli checkpoints every day about what they expected. They pretty much shrugged their shoulders and said nothing much. Really, most people are trying so hard just to exist, to feed their families, to try and find work, to try and survive under the ongoing military occupation in the West Bank, that looking further afield at what's happening in terms of international diplomacy is a luxury that they can't afford.
It's interesting to note, as an aside as well, Nicole, that Air Force One has just landed in Tel Aviv on what was actually a historic direct flight from Riyadh, from Saudi Arabia.
That's right. Saudi Arabia and Israel have no diplomatic ties or relationship. In effect, most of the Arab world is still technically either at war with Israel or have a very cold peace, such as Egypt, for example. So yes, this was a historic flight, something that hasn't happened before. From here, though, from Ben-Gurion, the US president will go by helicopter to Jerusalem. And it's actually been interesting, the sort of planning of this whole trip. Trump wanted to give an address at Masada. This is the ancient hilltop site down near the Dead Sea. He wanted to take his helicopter up there and land, something that previous US presidents normally take the cable car up. But when he found out he'd have to take the cable car, that part of the trip was cancelled. So there has been quite a lot of sort of confusion about exactly what President Trump's trip would entail.
Okay, Nicole, I'm sorry.
Later today, he'll be travelling
My
to the Old
apologies for
City.
interrupting you. I'm just going to turn our attention quickly to the pictures we're seeing now, where President Trump and his wife, First Lady Melania, have just left Air Force One. They are now shaking hands. There he is with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A warm welcome there, hugs and kisses. Melania as well. So it's a warm welcome on the ground, similar to what he experienced just a few days ago in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. And Nicole, there had been some reports that said at the last minute, the Israelis actually kind of stepped up their planned welcome for President Trump because there had been so much ceremony around his arrival in Saudi Arabia. Do you know how much of that is actually true, or is this just the normal welcome we expect when a U.S. president arrives?
I would say from the Israeli perspective, this visit has been planned down to the last minute. So what we see would have been whatever's been put in place for the last few days. What's interesting, though, is that there are reports today that a number of members of the Israeli parliament had decided that they wouldn't attend the landing at the Ben-Gurion airport because they'd have to stand out in the sun, and because it's a very sort of short time that President Trump will spend there, and he won't have time to be greeting very many people. So they had thought that they'd skip it, but the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was having none of that. He ordered all of them to attend, said it was mandatory, and so that's why we've got quite a big turnout today.
It'll be very interesting, Nicole, to see what does indeed unfold over the coming hours, because Prime Minister Netanyahu, at least during the campaign, felt very secure that President Trump would prove to be a true friend to Israel in the way he felt President Obama was not. But we have seen, as you mentioned before, President Trump flip-flop on some very key issues that the Israelis had celebrated his statements on. So tell us, walk us through some of those issues where he has seemingly changed his stance and seems a little bit less pro-Israel than he did during the campaign.
Andrea, as we've been discussing, of course, the biggest issue would have been Trump's pre-election promise that he would move the Israeli embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, this would have been a highly controversial move that would have, in effect, given de facto sovereignty to the Israelis over Jerusalem. Palestinians, of course, regard East Jerusalem as the capital of their future Palestinian state. Since then, it does appear that President Trump has at least delayed this decision or backed down on it to some extent. His policy advisors at the State Department have all said it's not a good idea. It could inflame tension on the street, as well as Arab leaders from countries like Jordan have spoken to Mr. Trump and said that this isn't a good idea. So for now, it seems to be on the back burner at least, which is a great relief to Palestinians. Having said that, President Trump is due to go to the Western Wall. This is the holiest site in Judaism, in the Old City. And Israeli leaders and the government wanted to accompany him to the Western Wall. The US administration said that it was a private visit, that Trump and his family would go on their own. And the US administration refused to acknowledge Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem. So they are being quite careful about what they're saying, not wanting to inflame the situation any more than it already is, especially if he wants to try and get some kind of peace process underway.
Again, Nicole, I'm just going to remind our viewers what we're watching here. President Trump has just landed at Ben-Gurion Airport there in Tel Aviv. He's shaken hands with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and they're now listening to both the American national anthem and the Israeli national anthem being played. You can see the scenes there, all the dignitaries involved in this arrival at Ben-Gurion Airport. He will soon be meeting one-on-one with Prime Minister Netanyahu, before meeting later today with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. And Nicole, if you can tell us then, what are the expectations for that meeting? As we said before, he had come across very strongly pro-Israeli during the campaign, but following his visit with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, he seemed to shift his position and sound a little more conciliatory towards Palestinian interests and the two-state solution.
That's right. The meeting with Mahmoud Abbas will take place in Bethlehem on Tuesday, actually, Tuesday morning. Certainly he won't be spending as much time in the West Bank as he does in Jerusalem and on this side of the line, so to speak. I'm not sure exactly what Palestinians expect from it, from the negotiating point of view. Anyone that we spoke to said that, yes, their expectations were low, but they hoped that President Trump would listen to them, would get some sense or understanding of the kinds of issues that they're dealing with. The separation wall, ongoing settlement construction in the West Bank, checkpoints that choke the life from village to village, areas cut off, individual cantons of Palestinian communities that can barely reach each other when those checkpoints are in full force. the ongoing siege in Gaza, the economic problems, the security situation, separation, roads that exist only for Israelis in the West Bank, so many different issues that Palestinians hope they can try and convey to Mr. Trump in a short period of time. As I said, he'll be travelling to Bethlehem. It's expected that he'll go by road, in which case he will see the separation wall that snakes around Bethlehem, a wall that has taken much of the land that originally belonged to Palestinians in Bethlehem. Now that land is on the other side of the wall and they can't access it. He'll see checkpoints, which for him, of course, will be open, but for Palestinians, they spend hours trying to go through those checkpoints to get to Israel and earn a living.
It might be interesting to see how President Trump responds to the building of that security wall, as he has been very much a proponent of security walls, of course, in the United States, especially along the southern border between the U.S. and Mexico. It might be hard for the Palestinians to find any sympathy from Trump in that respect for Israel taking to those kinds of security measures and choking off people in Gaza and the territories. But let me ask you, Nicole, as for Gaza, what about Hamas? What have they, if anything, had to say about President Trump's visit, especially given a lessening of their hard line on Israel that they announced recently through their latest manifesto?
Well, President Trump took a very strong line against Hamas, the group which controls the Gaza Strip and has done for the last 10 years. When he spoke in Riyadh, he put Hamas in the same basket as Daesh, Al-Qaeda, as well as Hezbollah, the Lebanese group. Hamas has since come out and said that it's not a terrorist organization, that it's fighting for the rights of Palestinian people. As you said, Hamas recently softened to some extent their stand against Israel. They came out with a new charter or manifesto for the group, and in that they said that they would support or accept a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders, so in effect an almost de facto recognition of the state of Israel. Of course, they didn't go quite that far, though. They also removed any anti-Semitic language that was in that charter, saying that their problem, their issue was with the state of Israel and not with the Jewish people.
And as we know, Nicole, this visit to Israel now comes off the back of a visit to, very lucrative visit, at least for the United States, to Riyadh, where he also gave the message yesterday, much to the satisfaction of the Saudis, that Iran is seen as an enemy, not just in the region, but by the United States entirely. That would have gone down well then with his counterparts in the Gulf, and it also goes down rather well with Israeli leaders.
Absolutely. For the state of Israel, Iran is considered an existential threat. It's been adamantly opposed to any lifting of the sanctions, any sort of improving of the diplomatic relationship between Iran and other countries. It was against the nuclear deal from the beginning, said that it was an absolute threat to the state of Israel. So the Israeli government, at least, will have been pleased to have heard that President Trump is on their side in that respect. But, I mean, as we know, the deal went ahead and it has now been renewed, so it's really a business as usual in that respect.
Okay, Nicole, we're just waiting now for the first speaker to take the podium there at Ben-Gurion Airport. We can see President Trump in the middle with Prime Minister Netanyahu sitting next to him. And let's listen into to the speaker now.
The President of the State of Israel, Reuven Rivlin, will deliver his welcome remarks.
Mr. President and the First Lady, Mr. Prime Minister and his wife Sarah, distinguished guests, dear friends, welcome to Israel. It is a great pleasure to have you here. Your visit is a symbol of the unbreakable bond between Israel and America. You are the President of Israel's greatest, most important ally. You are a true friend of Israel and of the Jewish people. Mr. President, the world needs a strong United States. The Middle East needs a strong United States. Israel needs a strong United States. And may I say, the United States also needs a strong Israel. In the Middle East, an area that suffers from terrorism and madness, the partnership between the United States and Israel shines like a beacon of liberty and progress. The bond between us is bond between states, but also between people. We share common values as we share the hope for peace. The people of Israel are excited by your arrival and have great expectation from this visit. We thank you for your commitment to Israel's ability to face the threats of today and of tomorrow. Mr. President, today I will have the honor to host you in Jerusalem. We are honored to have you here with us as we mark 50 years of Jerusalem Day, Yom Yerushalayim, as we say it in Hebrew. It makes us very happy to know that Israel's most important ally recognizes the significance of Jerusalem to the Jewish people all around the world. Jerusalem is the beating heart of the Jewish people as it has for 3,000 years. Mr. President, you come here to Israel from Saudi Arabia. You will be at the Western Wall and visit the Holy Church, and then you are going to the Vatican. In just one journey, you will visit the three holiest places for Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. We each have different beliefs, but we all worship the same God. We can work together towards a better future. We shall continue to do so together, Mr. President. Bruchim habaim leIsrael. Welcome to Israel. God bless you. God bless you, Mr. President. God bless you, First Lady. God bless America. God bless Israel.
גבירותיי ורבותיי, דבר ראש הממשלה ושר החוץ בנימין נתניהו. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, will deliver his welcome remarks.
President Rivlin and his wife, Nechama, President Trump, Madam First Lady, Donald, Melania, welcome, a very warm welcome to Israel. Your visit here, Mr. President, is truly historic. Never before has the first foreign trip of a President of the United States included a visit to Israel. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for this powerful expression of your friendship to Israel. Mr. President, yesterday in Saudi Arabia, you delivered a forceful speech of clarity and conviction. You called on all nations to drive out terrorists and extremists. You called for the forces of civilization to confront the forces of barbarism. Mr. President, for 69 years, Israel has been doing precisely that. We've manned the front lines of civilizations. We've fought terrorism. And we've built a modern, vibrant, democratic Jewish state. In doing so, Mr. President, we've protected all faiths, Muslims, Christians, everyone. Throughout the Middle East, Christian communities are decimated, minorities persecuted. But here in Israel, we're proud to have a growing and thriving Christian community, and we guarantee the rights of all. Mr. President, Israel also shares the commitment to peace that you expressed yesterday. We've already made peace with Egypt and with Jordan, and Israel's hand is extended to peace, in peace, to all our neighbors, including the Palestinians. The peace we seek is a genuine and durable one, in which the Jewish state is recognized, security remains in Israel's hands, and the conflict ends once and for all. Mr. President, you just flew from Riyadh to Tel Aviv. I hope that one day an Israeli Prime Minister will be able to fly from Tel Aviv to Riyadh. May your first trip to our region prove to be a historic milestone on the path towards reconciliation and peace. I look forward to working with you in the years ahead, Mr. President, to advance security, prosperity, and peace. I'm confident that under your leadership, the remarkable alliance between Israel and the United States will become ever greater, ever stronger. Donald and Melania, the entire U.S. delegation, on behalf of the government and the people of Israel, we welcome you to the State of Israel. May God bless you, Mr. President. May God bless Israel, and may God bless the United States of America.